I have been more than fair to Joe Biden. For the record, compared, I think, to any other conservative commentator, pundit, talk show host, politician, I have tried to be as charitable as I possibly can be to him. I don't think that it's fair to blame him for everything in Afghanistan, or even most things in Afghanistan. I don't think it's fair to blame him that there was any chaos or violence in the withdrawal. I think some chaos and perhaps even some violence were probably inevitable. But he has bungled this as much as possible every single step of the way. To quote Barack Obama, don't underestimate how much Joe can F things up. And he has. And then he finally addressed the nation last night. He was late to the address. And it was the worst presidential speech I've ever seen in my lifetime. Haven't been on this earth too long, but 31 years, been paying attention to politics the whole time. It was the worst I've ever seen. It was slurred. It was lethargic. It was meandering. It was weak. It refused to take responsibility. Just the open. Just listen to how he begins the speech.
A tough day. This evening in Kabul, as you all know, terrorists attacked that we've been talking about and worried about, that the intelligence community has assessed, has undertaken an attack by a group known as ISIS-K.
Is he awake? Is he even awake here, or is he just talking? That's what I sound like when I talk in my sleep. ISIS. It's not a good way to start. And it does matter. I'm not just taking a cheap shot at him. When the United States is attacked, when U.S. servicemen are killed by terrorists in a completely avoidable and bungled military operation, you need some energy from the commander-in-chief. You need some clarity. You need some force, and he didn't bring it. Then he confused the whole issue by referring to the distinction between the Taliban and ISIS. And how did ISIS get back here? I thought we beat ISIS. And what is the Taliban doing? And what's the relationship? He left more questions than answers.
We've been made aware by our intelligence community that the ISIS-K, an arch enemy, the Taliban, people who were freed when both those prisons were opened, has been planning a complex set of attacks on the United States personnel and others.
First of all, enough with the Taliban. He calls them the Taliban every single time. Only Democrats do this. The conservatives refer to the Taliban because we speak English, but the Democrats refer to the Taliban and Pakistan and all these other stupid, and Muslim, not Muslim, Muslim, because they want to sound cultured or cosmopolitan. These are the sort of people who probably go to Italian restaurants and instead of saying, hey, I'll have the spaghetti, hey, could you give me a plate of the spaghetti? They'll say, thank you, I would have gli spaghetti alla carbonara, per favore. No, actually, they don't do that. They just do it with certain words that are non-Western, and they think that this makes them more serious and cultured. It does not. Speak English, get the point out there. The Taliban and ISIS, and they're arch enemies, and the ISIS guys got out when those prisons were opened up. Who opened the prisons, Joe? The Taliban opened the prisons. The Taliban opened the prisons to free the Taliban people, but then the ISIS people got out too. So are they arch enemies, or are they kind of working together? Do they have a common enemy in the United States? All of the above. But now I guess we're told that the Taliban are our allies, which just proves the point. What the liberal imperialists who have been pushing this endless war in Afghanistan have been telling us is that, look, we've got to go there. There's the good guys, that's the Afghan army, it's the allies, and there's the bad guys, that's the Taliban. We're fighting them, we got to kill them all, and then they'll have peace in Afghanistan. And then yesterday we get attacked, not by the Taliban, but by ISIS. That's another group. And ISIS is against the Taliban. So now we've got to completely switch and say, no, actually the Taliban, they're our allies. They're our friends here. The Afghan army doesn't exist. It just completely folded within hours, so that doesn't exist anymore. Now we're friends with the Taliban. So what are we doing? What are we doing? Getting out is what we're doing. Joe Biden meanders through this ridiculous speech longer and longer. I won't subject you to it. Then he goes and finally takes some questions from the press. So is he taking a rousing round of combative questions for, in real time? No. He actually, you gotta give him credit for transparency. He acknowledges that the questions are pre-approved.
Ladies and gentlemen, they gave me a list here. The first person I was instructed to call on was Kelly O'Donnell of NBC.
You have said leaving Afghanistan is in the national interest of the United States.
They gave me a list here I have been instructed to call on. Instructed by whom? Who are they who tell you to do this? They, the people who instructed you to do this, are running the country. You, manifestly, are not. And you're not even competent enough to hide the fact that all of this is a show and it's all pre-approved. More on that in a minute, but first, the economy is all over the place these days. Prices are going way, way up, and the most solid asset that most people have is like a Dogecoin. I would recommend you hedge with gold. Gold always has had value. It's tangible, it's physical. Great hedge on inflation. An Acre will let you invest in physical gold for as little as $30 a month. Michael, you liar. Don't call me a liar. Gold is more expensive, Michael. Calm down. Calm down. Acre figured it out. For as little as $30 a month, you subscribe, you pay each month. Once your gold stash reaches the price of their gold bars, they will discreetly ship Acre Gold to your house. They've got a new $100 a month subscription to a 5-gram gold bar. You don't need to come out of pocket all at once. I have always enjoyed and done very well investing in physical precious metals. I love investing in Acre Gold specifically. I got my bar sitting right on my desk at home. Visit GetAcre. I probably shouldn't have told you that. Now someone's going to break into my house. Visit getacregold.com/Knowles. Start investing in physical gold today. Make sure you go to this URL because Acre is giving away a gold bar. To qualify for the giveaway, tweet or post why you should be the recipient and mention @get_Acre. That's getacregold.com/Knowles. Thank you, Acre Gold, for supporting the show. He then is asked, actually an excellent reporter here. It's hard to tell who these reporters are because they've got their masks on. But he asks him about Bagram. He says, hold on. This is the question that my wife asked the other day. My wife, who says, I'm no foreign policy expert, okay? I didn't go to West Point. But when you're leaving a country, wouldn't it be smart to get the civilians out before the military leaves? Wouldn't that be a smart idea? I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy. So this reporter asks that question.
Did you personally reject a recommendation to hold or to recapture Bagram Air Force Base?
Here's what I've done let's answer the last question first. On the tactical questions of how to conduct an evacuation or a war, I gather up all the major military personnel that are in Afghanistan, the commanders, as well as the Pentagon. And I ask for their best military judgment. What would be the most efficient way to accomplish the mission? They concluded, the military, that Bagram was not much value added, that it was much wiser to focus on Kabul. And so I followed that recommendation.
Was that, I actually couldn't tell. Was that Wegman? I think it may have been. Excellent question. Really excellent question. Terrible answer, but really good question to ask him. Hold on. Was this your decision? Are you, the buck stops with you? Are you the one who made this call to abandon the airbase before the airlift? Doesn't make sense. And what does Biden do? It's so pathetic. He blames his commanders. He says, no, they gave me the advice, and so I did what they wanted me to do. It's their fault. Don't blame, the buck stops with them. They're the president. It's not my, no, buddy, your job is to get advice from a lot of different people and then either choose whose advice you want to go with or come up with a separate answer yourself. You're the decider. Whatever you want to say about George Bush, I think George W. Bush made a lot of mistakes, and I think a lot of the problems in Afghanistan are because of him, and a lot of the confusion in our foreign policy is because of him. But whatever you want to say about George Bush, at least he was the decider. At least he owned his decisions and stood by them. Kind of proof that sometimes a wrong decision even can be better than indecision. Biden won't do that. He's got to blame everybody but himself. Peter Doocy, one of the last reporters left in America, reporter for Fox News, he gets up, asks Biden a question about responsibility. Listen, Mr. President, you've been dancing around and evading responsibility for this whole debacle. Is this, do you take responsibility for any aspect of the collapse of Afghanistan?
You set a deadline, you pulled troops out, you sent troops back in, and now 12 Marines are dead. You said the buck stops with you. Do you bear any responsibility for the way that things have unfolded in the last 2 weeks?
I bear responsibility for fundamentally all that's happened of late. But here's the deal. You know, I wish you'd one day say these things. You know as well as I do that the former president made a deal with the Taliban that he would get all American forces out of Afghanistan by May 1. In return, the commitment was made, and that was a year before. In return, he was given a commitment that the Taliban would continue to attack others, but would not attack any American forces.
Look, fundamentally, the problem, it all comes back to me. I'm responsible. But it was Trump's fault. Democrats always do this. They say, I'm taking full responsibility. But really, we all know it was someone else's fault. So they're trying to get credit for taking responsibility, but they evade responsibility entirely. By the way, this raises a question. A lot of this debacle is because we're pushing now into the end of August or maybe even later. If the whole point was that they were going to get the troops out by early May, why didn't they do that? If what Biden is saying is, yeah, you know, a lot of the reason that this is so violent and there are attacks and everything is because we stayed longer and that's why the Taliban's not going to give us another extension. Well, why didn't you just get out when the United States said we would then? Wouldn't we have avoided this then? If you're saying that a lot of the reason that the Taliban had not been attacking American troops is because of Trump's deal, then why wouldn't you continue with that? And then the worst moment of the press conference, then we can move on, but the worst moment of the press conference, do not let the left spin this, they're already spinning this, is he was asked a follow-up by Peter Doocy, and Biden was so defeated that he just put his head down on his hands.
Because before... No, wait a minute. I'm asking you a question. Is that accurate? The best
About, but Mr. President, respectfully, since that I don't think that the issue that, do you think that people have an issue with pulling out of Afghanistan or just the way that things have happened?
So pathetic. He can't even keep his head up. He can't even keep his eyes open. I mean, he was struggling to do that during the speech itself, and now Doocy pushes back at all. Very simple question, and he puts his head down on his hands. The left is spinning this image. This is a devastating image for the Biden administration, and the left is already spinning it and saying that he was praying for our troops. That's not what happened. You just heard the clip. He was not. He was struggling and failing to answer a simple question by a reporter. Earlier in the speech, he said, let's have a moment of silence. But he did. That's not what that image is from. Don't let that. I had a blue check mark yesterday tell me, oh, no, Michael, you're so callous to make fun of this moment. He's praying for the fallen servicemen. He's not. He's praying that the reporter will stop asking him tough questions, and he's praying that he can get an answer to it. But he can't because there is no answer. The chances that this guy gets reelected are collapsing day after day after day after day, unless there's widespread voter fraud in 2024.